Hello folks, how we all doing? Welcome back to the channel. Hope we're all good. Jamie talks Celtic. Not really went live on here many times before, but this is going to be a new venture where I'm going to start going live a lot more often to talk all things Celtic, funnily enough, because that's what the channel's called. But yeah, just a couple of these things to get going here before we get into everything. But yeah, thank you very much for everybody who's tuning in or whoever tunes in later on. There's been a couple of wee bits of Celtic development today, and we'll get into them. We'll get into them straight away. Let's start with the big news of today, and that is that Kelechi Iheanacho has left Celtic. He has joined Turkish side at Bursaspor. They're a second division team these days, so you know it's not as if he's went to one of the big hitters in Turkey. He's went to Bursaspor, so interesting stuff. A lot of Celtic fans are angry, which I completely understand, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, I think a lot of Celtic fans were looking at Iheanacho to try and, bring him in after his escapades of last season where he scored crucial goals for Celtic. Albeit, he scored in the very controversial game against Motherwell where he scored the penalty, and he scored in the cup final against Dunfermline as well. So it's a guy that was scoring crucial goals for Celtic. I can remember the goal against Dundee as well, kind of late on there, which was a vital goal for Celtic. So I'm really disappointed with the news today that Iheanacho has decided to go over to Turkey. I can get the benefits of it. Obviously, it's a warmer country, it's probably a nicer way of life and stuff, let's be honest. However, the Celtic board do have to be looked at. I don't know how much Iheanacho has signed on for. I don't know how much he's going to be getting per week. I know that these Turkish clubs do like to pay a lot to their players, don't they? Especially your Galatasarays and Fenerbahçes and that these days. But there's just clubs outside that as well. They have been paying players quite a lot of money. So who knows what Iheanacho's on? I'm sure that'll come out within the next couple of days. But albeit Celtic should have had this sewn up. I was talking to my mates in the group chat about this, and one of my mates said, well, I get where you're coming from about the wages and that, but the point is that it should have been wrapped up before we'd even got to that point where Iheanacho was discussing with other clubs. And I get it. I totally get it. I mean, but then you don't know what happens behind closed doors. You don't know where Iheanacho has said to Celtic, you know what, I'm not willing to even discuss the new. I want to keep my options open. All right, you want to give me a deal? You want to offer me a deal? That's fair enough. But I want to talk to other clubs in that, which I totally understand. I get why Iheanacho would want to keep his options open. Do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, that's what footballers do. They like to have a look around and all that, especially after last season, where it wasn't the best of seasons for Celtic, unfortunately. But we ended up going on to win a double, which is incredible after some of the performances that we put on. And we had the whole Wilfred Nonce period of time. But I think that I'm totally on board with the criticism of the Celtic hierarchy, to be honest. I totally get it, why people are frustrated, why people are angry at Dermot Desmond, why people are angry at, Michael Nicholson, Brian Wilson, all these guys. I would really like to talk to a chief executive of a club one day, whether it's, I'm not talking that I need to speak to somebody at the Celtic level, but I'd like to speak to somebody maybe who's in the Championship, the First Division or whatever, to see how things kind of operate, because I don't feel we get told enough as football fans what happens in the kind of the transfer side of things. I don't think there's enough dialogue out there when it comes to that kind of thing, because we're all just kind of second guessing of what Michael Nicholson is allowed to do. We don't know whether Michael Nicholson is trying to push these deals through, and Dermot Desmond and the board are saying no, that can't happen. You're no spending that amount of money or whatever. But there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Celtic and the Celtic board are waiting for money for Arne Engels and waiting for money for Benjamin Nigri and Dyson Maida. I think they're waiting for offers to come in before they say, right, we're going to start spending cash. They might turn and say to me, we've already spent £6 million on Camilo Duran, which is fair enough, but at the end of the day, that's us now a striker down with an actual moving on as well. So, we've only really got Osmond, Kenny and Duran. at the club at the moment. So, Maida's still there, but I think we're all kind of resigned to the fact that Daizen Maida is going to move on from Celtic. That's just going to happen until, let's be honest, it's a kind of no-brainer that is going to happen at some point. But I'm really, really angry, to be honest with you, with how Celtic and the Celtic hierarchy go about things. It's absolutely ridiculous, to be honest with you. It's just no good enough. Iheanacho contributed so much last season. I know that people might look at it and go, well, he's not going to be the fittest player in the world, which I totally understand. I get that. But when he doesn't even really need to be 100% fit. Even if Iheanacho's 85, 90% fit, when he comes off the bench, he's a total threat up front. He showed it last season. Whenever he came on for Celtic, he was a big threat. He scored some really good goals. There's another goal just keep my mind against Hibs at Easter Road. That was another vital goal. If that hadn't went in, we wouldn't win the league. So Iheanacho played a huge part in Celtic winning the league last season, and we should have tied it up as soon as the season was done. Right, Kelechi, go your holiday, but as soon as you come back, we want to discuss it. And it's just not happened. He's looked elsewhere. He's maybe I don't know whether it was true or no, but I seen a thing on X earlier on where somebody has posted a picture of them talking to Iheanacho on Instagram. I know that a lot of these things can be fake and AI and all that these days. So, but he did take a lot of screen recording it as well, and he's like, honestly, this is actually real and stuff. But again, maybe it's just the way AI works these days. So I don't know, but at the end of the day, it's a real disappointment to lose Kelechi Iheanacho. I'm gutted because, let's be honest, at the end of this transfer window, we will almost certainly have no Iheanacho, have no Maida, have no Engels. I think, though, obviously Iheanacho is definitely away. I think it's almost a certainty that Maida and Engels are no longer at the club by, the end of the transfer window. Then they won't be there the day after the transfer window closes. They just won't be. I think we all know that. I'm also really concerned about the fact that Alistair Johnston might move on. He had a really good World Cup. They got to the last 16. And, there's Martin O'Neill hasn't ruled out going for Arajo. Now, I'm a big fan of Arajo. I thought he did really, really well when he was at Celtic last season. None more so than when he was playing against Rangers at Ibrox and stuff like that. He loved to get in their faces and all that. We love players like that. But it does say to me that Alistair Johnston could be walking out the door. We could be getting some bids in for him, which is a concern. It really is a concern to me, because I think, again, along the kind of same lines as Iheanacho, I think Alistair Johnston coming in last season after his injury was vital for Celtic. It really, really was. I thought he was outstanding when he came in. He was one of our best players up until the end of the season. He played in the cup final. He contributed so much. But again, so did Arajo. But I'm just saying, when Arajo, if he does arrive at Celtic, I think it's bye-bye to Alistair Johnston, unfortunately. Looking at the games for the other night and that, you're looking at the Shelbourne game, and particularly the Sporting Lisbon game, I thought Celtic were really, really poor. Really poor. And I am not one of these people that is going to totally freak out at the fact of, we've lost a pre-season game, stuff like that. I get it. I get that it's all about fitness. That is my main priority. It's the club's main priority is to, get these players fit and ready for the upcoming season. We've got a crucial Champions League qualifier in a couple of weeks. We've got, the first game of the season coming up. We're going to follow the flag and stuff next Monday. So, I mean, it's just something that it's all about fitness. But the performance in some of those players, Sporting Lisbon players were gliding by our guys at times, and then you look in the second half and Ross Dew and Dane Murray both make an error. And it's just worrying. But going back to the Iheanacho situation, it is a real disappointment. I hope the big man does go on to have a really, good remainder of his career, because he's been a really good servant for Celtic last season. He was really good doing it at Leicester. He's just been a really good player, Iheanacho and stuff. And never forget what he gave us last season and stuff like that. So I think every Celtic fan can kind of understand why Iheanacho's moved on, especially if he's not been made to feel wanted. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the biggest criticism of the Celtic board at the moment, is that they're just not doing their job properly by trying to recruit players or keep players happy at the club as it is, So Aye, it's a big disappointment. But on to the next topic is there's another player that's looking like he's leaving Celtic, and it's Nerowski. It looks as if he's going to be moving on to Lens in France. Sorry, which is really surprising to me. I think that he looked like a player whenever he's had a Celtic jersey on, to be honest with you. I know he's played some big games for Celtic against Rangers and that at Parkhead, and every single time that Brendan Rodgers called upon him, I thought he looked decent, and so did a lot of other Celtic fans. Again, maybe Martin O'Neill has looked at him and thought maybe he's no for me. I don't know. I certainly don't think that's the case with Iheanacho, because Martin O'Neill did come out last week and say they're trying to offer Iheanacho a deal. But I doubt that it's the Nerowski situation with Martin O'Neill. I believe it's probably just the board going, you know what, he's been on loan now a couple of times. He's not an established first-team player. Let's move this guy on. And he's not felt wanted and stuff. And I just think it's a real shame, I really do, because I think that he's better than Dane Murray. I don't think we've got any kind of dispute about that. I think Dane Murray is a far weaker footballer than Nerowski for what I've seen. So you're not telling me that Dane Murray is better than Nerowski. You're not telling me he's a better option. Stephen Welsh has moved on as well. You're not telling me that Stephen Welsh isn't better than Dane Murray, because he is. Dane Murray is by far the weakest centre-half we've got at the club. So it's just a concern. It's when you're letting guys like Nerowski go and you're letting guys like Iheanacho go, you're having to replace these guys. You're having to bring players in to come in and, not only just replace them, but, do better. Somebody's got to come in and do better than Nerowski. You've got to go out and get a better player than Nerowski. Same with Iheanacho. You've got to go out and get somebody new that's capable of scoring goals. You know what I mean? Because it's a major loss to them. The two of them are a major loss to Celtic in my opinion. Well, particularly Iheanacho, but Nerowski, I would have much rather seen Dane Murray leave before I seen Nerowski leave, to be honest with you. But that's just the way it goes, isn't it? He's deemed good enough to go and play in the team that finished second in France last season, but he's deemed no good enough for Celtic, or they don't feel it's good enough to offer him a proper deal at Celtic or whatever. I don't know what the script is, but let me know in the comments what you guys think of these things I'm saying about Iheanacho and Nerowski and that. Let me know if you agree with me, disagree with me. It's all good. I just want to know your opinions and stuff like that. Remember, subscribe to the channel as well, please. Trying to get up to 1,000 as quickly as possible. And all I want to do is talk about Celtic, because it's a club I love. It's a club we all love. And I want to hear everybody's opinion, or the Celtic fans' opinion, on the things I'm going to be talking about. But aye, it's a weird one with Nerowski. I know we haven't really seen a lot of him, but every time we've seen him, he looked alright. And I think that is the general consensus of most Celtic fans, to be honest with you, from what I've seen. So that's two players leaving the club today that the Celtic fans would have loved to have kept for next season, I believe. So again, we're already in a position of needing players in. But we're in a position, regardless of, say no one had left yet, right? And no one had come in yet, right? We're in a position of, we need players in, right? To strengthen the squad regardless. But now, since then, we have lost two today. We've brought in Duran, Oxlade-Chamberlain's there. So we need to replace Iheanacho. We need to replace Nerowski. So there's positions. We need about 6 players. We need about 6 players. We need a goalkeeper, which, I know that some Celtic fans are quite happy with Sinisalo and goal and stuff like that. Personally, I would like an upgrade on Sinisalo. Personally, that's what I personally think. I would like to see an upgrade on Sinisalo. By the way, I'll get to comments just when I finish talking a wee bit. I will get to comments. I'll put them on the screen and I'll reply to them. But, I would like an upgrade on Sinisalo. I think that we've been linked to a couple of goalkeepers and stuff. Again, we're trying to lowball everybody by the looks of it, which isn't going to work. And we should have these players in right now. Right now, as it stands, as we sit here right now, guys, we should have about 4 or 5 players in. we shouldn't be waiting, and then Celtic will turn and go, we got the players in, stop waiting, we need the players in right now. And I've said this for weeks and weeks and weeks. Time is creeping up. We're almost in August, guys. We're a couple of weeks away from August, and we've signed one player, and we've gave one player a contract extension. So, I mean, it's just annoying. It's just annoying how the Celtic board are dragging their heels as usual and stuff like that. But we need, as it stands right now, I reckon we need about 6 or 7 players by the start of the new season, or at least by the end of the transfer. We need at least another 6. We need a goalkeeper. We need a centre half now. You know, but I think we need 2 centre halves because last season we had the boy Benjamin Arthur on loan as well. So you know we're actually 2 centre halves down from last season. If Narowski goes, well, Narowski didn't play last season, but you know what I'm saying. You know we've lost Welsh, we've lost Narowski, and we've lost Benjamin Arthur. So I've not heard any rumours about maybe Arthur coming in. I don't know whether that's the case, but I don't know. We need a goalkeeper. We need a centre half. We need a left back because Sarachi's moved on. Inamura's another one, by the way, who's moved on. So we've actually lost 3 centre halves. So 3 centre halves have left the club. So we need a goalkeeper, a centre half. We need a left back. We need another striker now because Iheanacho's left. That's 4. I think we all could agree we need a winger. So that's 5, right? So I'm talking about 5 right now, as it stands, and we still haven't sold Maeda or Engels or Nygren if it happens, or Alistair Johnson or Hitati. So it's incredible what's going to happen here. We need if we sell Nygren, Engels, Hitati, Maeda, we are talking here. We need a whole new team. We need 11 players. You know, we need 11 players if that happens. Right now, as it stands, we need 6. So if we lose all them, we need 11. So I mean, it's just mental, man. It's absolutely mental. But right. So sorry, I'm just reading the comments now. Kenneth Todd, how you doing, Kenneth? We could have used Welsh to get Justin bargaining. Aye, mate. When that happened, when Stephen Welsh moved on from Celtic, I don't believe he's currently signed with a club yet. I think there was talk of him. Has he signed for Swansea or something? I think he's maybe looking at going down to Swansea. I don't know if that's actually happened yet. But I agree, mate. We could have used the thing for Welsh with Elijah Just, you know. But again, Celtic, for whatever reason, just don't want to negotiate these things, or they want to wait at the last minute. I mean, it's like they're scared to spend money. It's like they're scared to negotiate. In case, I think they're terrified that this bid doesn't come in for Engels, or this bid doesn't come in for Maeda, and they're stuck with these guys and they're having to pay other players, you know, pay for other players while being stuck with Maeda, while being stuck with Engels, and no having the money coming in, which is frightening, mate. But I agree, we should have done some sort of bargaining deal. Craig Shattuck, how you doing, Craig? How you doing, mate? He's no fit enough for 40 games a season. And on the money he wants, he'll be lucky to play 20 games. Well, that's the thing, mate. I did say that at the start. I don't know how much Bursaspor are paying Kelechi Iheanacho. I'm not sure how much, you know, his wages are. But at the end of the day, I think that it's probably a case of the Celtic board just haven't negotiated well with the guy. They just haven't made him feel wanted. In my opinion, I doubt that Iheanacho is on mega bucks in Bursaspor. I reckon he's probably on maybe 20 odd, and I reckon he'd get that at Celtic. I just don't think Celtic have paid the money for him. And you know, another thing, you know, you're absolutely bang on about he's not fit enough and stuff like that. I'm really surprised that they've given him a 3-year contract. He's only 29 right enough, which I was quite surprised about. Yes, still a relatively young guy, you know what I mean? Football terms. So, I mean, I wouldn't have given him a 3-year deal. I don't think any of us would have been happy if it was a 3-year deal. Maybe a 2-year deal. I think we should have given him a 2-year deal, but he's maybe looking for that wee bit of security in that as well, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm the first one to criticise the Celtic board, guys. I'm the first one to do it, Craig. Honestly, right? But sometimes I just think to myself, I wish I knew a wee bit more about the actual facts behind these kind of things. Do you know what I mean? Because we don't know. We're assuming that the Celtic board just haven't offered Iheanacho the correct money, and you know, a 3-year deal for the guy. I mean, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible he's getting out in Turkey. So fair play to Iheanacho for that. You know what I mean? definitely. Sorry, guys, just having a wee look. Did we not sign Kelechi because they're looking at someone else? Did we not sign Kelechi because they're looking at someone else? Looking. Oh, right, okay, sorry, I just get what you mean now. Possibly, mate, possibly. Maybe that's the case. Maybe they've got somebody else in mind. But then Martin O'Neill did say, though, that we have put a kind of, we've gave a contract offer to Iheanacho, so I think that Martin O'Neill did want him, mate, to be honest with you. Why was Martin and Fozzie at the Murrow game? I'm not sure, mate. I didn't know they were. Let's hope that's a wee sign of Elijah Just or a Maswanisi. I can't see Elliot Watt coming to Celtic because I think Elliot Watt's a big... he's a supporter of the dark side of the city, isn't he? So... What's happening, guys? How you doing, mate? Because of the players that's leaving Celtic and has left, are you worried for next season with the lack of signings that your board has made? 100%, guys. 100%, mate. That's what I've been talking about. Right now, as it stands, we need 6. We need 6 players. I've just named the positions. Like I say, I'll say it again, right? So a goalkeeper, centre half, left back, winger. In fact, 2 wingers, and we need another striker. So we need 6 players. We need 6 players, and that's without Maida moving on. That's without Engels moving on. That's without Hatate moving on. That's without the possibility of Nygren moving on. That's without the possibility of Alistair Johnson moving on. You know, it's mad how long it's taken. It's mad how long it's taken. I am going to be absolutely fuming, guys, right? And I know that yous will be as well. See if we go into this fucking Champions League qualifier, by the way, right, in a few weeks, with Dane Murray at centre half, and Alistair Johnson gets injured, Anthony Ralston at right back, I'll be fucking raging. I'll be absolutely raging. We cannot go into a Champions League qualifier with any of the 2 boys, particularly Dane Murray. All it takes is, you know what Carter Vickers is like? All it takes is a slight twinge and he'll be out for weeks. Then who have we got? Who have we got there? Scales and Trusty. Again, Trusty's just played a complete World Cup in that. We can put it this way, you know, we had years and years and years of Near Beaton being in that position. The guy was a central midfielder, and we had years and years and years of him at centre half for Celtic. And every year we were going, why is this being allowed to happen? Why is this being allowed to happen? We cannot go into this season, after the whole escapades of last season Champions League campaign, which was 2 games or 4 games, whatever it was. We can't be getting into this one with Dane Murray. We just cannot. It's suicide. Absolute suicide. So yes, guys, 100% we need players, mate. I'm not happy with how things are going on. Must got Nicholson out now. Well, that's the thing I've been talking about, Paul, is I would love to know why Michael Nicholson is not being held accountable, and I'd like to know the ins and outs of what's actually happening behind the scenes at Celtic, because it seems to me like somebody or various people are not doing their job properly. Now, the thing is, we're all blaming Michael Nicholson, and I get it, man. I'm on board with that. But we don't know that Michael Nicholson isn't trying to push these deals through, and Dermot Desmond and the Celtic board are saying, nah, you're not spending that much, no, it's not happening, and Michael Nicholson's going, come on. But, you know, we need to sign these players. We need to have players in by now, and the board are going, nah, we're not spending that amount of money. We don't know that. We don't know what's actually happening. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that frustrates me, is I'd love to know who exactly is to blame. And you can turn around and say they're all to blame, but we don't know what maybe Dermot Desmond is pushing Michael Nicholson. Come on, get these players in. But then Dermot Desmond should be saying, well, you're not doing your job right enough, mate, so you need to go. So clearly Dermot Desmond and the board feel that Michael Nicholson is doing a good enough job, because he's still there. You know what I mean? Year after year after year, he's still there. Same when Peter Lawwell was there. You know, we had these situations and these things. Something goes on at Celtic behind the scenes that we are no privy to, and the fact that we just don't understand, and it makes us angry. So it's so frustrating, man. Sorry, some comments. John, how you doing, mate? Please do not go tomorrow. no more money to the board. Listen, I'm not going to lie, I am not, I don't really go to many games anymore. I've got certain reasons for that. But I'm kind of in the middle with this, right? I totally back anybody who doesn't go to these games. I totally back them. I think that they're correct, right? I think that it should be a case of, Celtic fans trying to push people not to go to these games. I get it. However, we have to remember that everybody's different, right? And that everybody is entitled to make up their own mind. So if somebody decides, you know what, I'm still going to go to these games, that's their prerogative. That's their prerogative. We're all grown adults, right? We all get to make our own decisions in life for that. I totally get trying to inspire people not to go, because I would love everybody not to turn up to these games, to be honest with you. I really would. I'm totally on board with you, John. But then again, there's some people online that I've seen that are getting angry with others for saying, you know what, I'm going, I'm taking my son, or I'm taking my daughter, or taking my niece, my nephew, or whatever, or I'm just going to go because I support Celtic. I totally get that as well. I think we just need to be a wee bit more respectful to people and remember who's to blame here, and that's the people at the high end of Celtic, not the supporters. We've got nothing to do with this, right? We have pushed and pushed and pushed and cried and cried and cried for a better situation at the Celtic boardroom level, and it's not happening. There's got to be a time, if this continues, that we've got to start protesting again. We've got to start going outside Parkhead, or going wherever you need to go, to to let them know that this is just unacceptable. And eventually, if you do that often enough, their hand will be forced. Do you know what I mean? But again, all I would ask people is just be respectful. John, I agree with you, but if somebody says to you, John, no, I want to go to the game tomorrow, that's my prerogative, you've got to respect that, mate. You've just got to. At the end of the day, like I say, we're all adults, so I would never preach to anybody or fight with anybody for going to a football match, right? I would maybe try and say to them, listen, I don't think you're doing the right thing. I think that this is what we need to do to make change. But if Celtic fans want to go to a football match, it's up to them, in my opinion. I heard Maida in talks with Spurs. That'd be an interesting move for Daizen Maida, wouldn't it? I think that, again, he's a very good World Cup. I think that he's a good, really, really good player. He's quick enough for the English Premier League. There's absolutely no doubt about that. He's at a good age now. Interesting. What would you take for him, Robin? How much would you? Oh, sorry, Robbie. How much would you accept for Daizen Maida? I'm thinking somewhere between a £10 and £12 million mark. I think if he was a couple of years younger, I'd be wanting more. The Arnie Engels kind of end of things and stuff. But I think I'd be looking for maybe 10, 11, £12 million for Maida. And I think it'd be a good bit of business to go to Tottenham. It'd be good for Maida. I think it'd be good for Tottenham. But one thing's for sure, in my opinion, if Maida goes to Tottenham, he's saying goodbye to trophies, isn't he? He is. I know that they won the Europa League under Ange and that, but it's just a toxic club, man, isn't it? It's a toxic club that just do not win trophies, man, on a consistent basis and stuff. So it's a shame for Maida. Obviously, he wants to play at the top level and stuff like that, but it's a shame for him in the sense he'd be waving goodbye to trophies. And it would definitely do his Japan career no harm by going to the Premier League, because I think we all kind of know that the Japanese manager doesn't rate Scotland as much. I think that rumour about him no picking Kyogo for those reasons was kind of true. I think obviously he liked Maida, so Maida was always in the squad, whereas Kyogo had to convince him, and I think he came out. I think it was actual public knowledge a few years ago that the Japanese manager basically came out and said, you need to play at a higher level if you want to be in my team. So I can understand why Maida would move on. I think Spurs would be a good move for him, to be honest. Gaz says, I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of you don't go to the game tomorrow. My mates that are Celtic supporters have already said they are sick to the back teeth of your board. Your mates are right, mate. I'm totally in agreement with that. Totally in agreement. I don't think there's anybody. I think you're probably talking a handful of Celtic fans now that are still backing this board. I don't think there's a small minority, a small percentage of Celtic fans who think this board is alright and think that everything is hunky-dory and that, you know, we need to all stop moaning and stuff. I just find that incredible. Listen, there's outside fans who are saying in comments and stuff, why use all moaning? Why use all moaning? You've won the league every year. You know, you're winning trophies, you're playing Europe and all that. And I get that argument, but it's for an outside in, isn't it? They're no seeing the fact that we know we can progress even further. We know that we can get ahead. We know that we can compete in Europe better if we are ran better and we get better players in the door and we have better decision making at the top end of the club. You know what I mean? And that's the problem here. We're not being run properly. We're being run by a bunch of charlatans who are, in my opinion, trying to antagonise the Celtic fans a lot of the time. I've said this before in previous lives and stuff, right? There's no doubt in my mind that AGM last season was to antagonise Celtic supporters. These are businessmen, right? You know, Peter Lawwell's an intelligent guy, whatever, regardless of what you think of him, right? He's an intelligent businessman. You've got Ross Desmond, Dermot Desmond's son. He's obviously came through the same kind of upbringing. You know, he's been told for day one the importance of money and the importance of business and stuff like that, right? So he's an smart guy whose dad's a billionaire. Why would they come out last season at AGM and, you know, go all guns blazing against the Celtic support? And that was absolutely incredible to me. It really opened my eyes to how we are being ran as a club. Those Celtic fans turned up that day with legitimate, correct grievances. You know what I mean? They absolutely did. They were more than their right to boo. They were more than their right to voice their concerns. That's the whole point of AGMs, right? Is to show what's happening behind the scenes at the club financially and how the club's run as a business and how it's run. And the Celtic fans aren't happy with that, so they turned up that day to voice their concerns about that. And basically, that day at that AGM last season, they got a massive, massive slap in the face for Peter Lawwell and the Desmonds. Dermot Desmond didn't even have the balls to turn up that day. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely shocking. So, I mean, I'm totally in the camp of your pals, mate. It's ridiculous how Celtic are being ran at the moment, and it's ridiculous how Celtic have been ran for the past several years, to be honest with you. Hail from Hungary, how you doing, mate? Mike, how you doing, pal? Thanks very much for tuning in. Remember, everybody, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button for daily Celtic content. Guys, what is the most annoying thing that has annoyed you, mate? Is that the fact your board came out and absolutely put all the blame on you as supporters why there hasn't been signings? Oh, mate, there is so many things that annoy you about the Celtic board. So many things. My biggest thing is what I just spoke about, the AGM last season. I thought that was absolutely shambolic, horrendous, ridiculous, disrespectful. There's so many horrible words to say about that AGM last season. Peter Lawwell stormed out like a big child. We will just end this meeting and stuff like that. Embarrassing, shocking. And it just shows you what they think of the Celtic supporters, in my opinion. Now, there's been other things, you know, just the way the transfers are taking too long to come in, the lack of dialogue that they give the Celtic supporters, the lies that you're being told, right? And I'm sorry, right, but Brian Wilson came out the other week there on Celtic TV and said it's going to be a busy, busy few weeks, right? He came out at the end of last season, and he came out in that same interview that I'm talking about there and said we're going to have more dialogue with the Celtic supporters, right? Now, none of these things have happened. It's not been busy. It's not been a busy period. We've signed one player and we've gave someone a contract extension of a year, right? How was that busy? Now, that was about 5 weeks ago. He said that, right? So, and he's also said about the dialogue, you hear nothing. All you hear from Celtic and the Celtic social media and everybody regarding Celtic is about new kits, about new shirts, t-shirts that are coming out, new merchandise. So all you've got to assume with this is, right, is that Brian Wilson is lying. He's lying, right? So that's another thing. I believe they're lying to the Celtic supporters. They're lying to us. They're not buying players in time. They're not buying the correct players at the correct moments. The AGM was a slap in the face. The way that they allowed the Wilfred Nonce situation to carry on, was another generational nightmare. You know what I mean? The fact they allowed that guy to sit on there and sit on there and sit on there for weeks and weeks. He should have been sacked about 5 weeks before he was. He should have been sacked long before he was. We all knew that was going to happen eventually. The writing was on the wall. He wasn't getting the best out of these players. And again, they had a duty of care to Wilfred Nancy, and they didn't do it. You know what I mean? They allowed that guy to sit there and try and fix things, knowing that it was never going to happen. It was over, right? It was done and dusted, man, for about 5 weeks before Wilfred Nancy was sacked. The day goes, we lost against Rangers and they decided that's enough now. What about the game against Dundee United where we get pumped? What about against Motherwell where we get pumped? What about when we drew with Livingston, the fucking ridiculously shitty Livingston team? What about these horrible performances in the cup final? What about these horrible performances against Rangers? It was just a complete nightmare. He was a nightmare of a manager, and they never acted quick enough on that. So, listen, I could write an absolute list of things that Celtic have got wrong over the years, up until the present day, where they've just allowed Iheanacho to go, and they've just allowed Nerowski to go. 2 players that Celtic fans wanted to stay on. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's just constant, man. It's constant. It's like people up above, they're either trying to antagonise you or they don't know what they're doing. One of the 2 things is true. Right, one of those 2 things is 100% true, guys. So, what else we got here? Mike says, I agree. This looks like the Desmonds are just being spiteful and giving us fans a 2-fingered salute. Oh, mate, Mike, I couldn't agree more, mate. I could not agree more with you, pal. I think that is exactly what it is. It's an arrogance thing. It's an arrogance. We are the owners of the football club. You will do as we say. There's another thing that's just kept my mind right. Guys asking that question, what's the other thing that's annoyed? What's the most things that annoyed you about the board and that, right? What about the way they treated the Green Brigade last season? No, I am no one of these people that thinks the Green Brigade can do no wrong, because they can do wrong. I don't believe in all the political stuff that they bring up. I just don't. I don't believe in all that stuff. I'm not a big fan of fireworks and all that stuff inside stadiums and that. I like tifos and all the that kind of stuff. When they get to the political side of things, that's when I kind of bow out. I'm not into politics at all. People can have their own views and stuff like that. I've got my own personal views about politics. And whatever is said in a stadium, I don't agree with. I don't believe we should be going down that road. That's just my own opinion of the Green Brigade. I don't believe the Green Brigade should be out making statements and stuff like that. I don't, they shouldn't speak for everybody, in my opinion, the Green Brigade. However, they're fantastic for Celtic. They're fantastic for Celtic Park. They're brilliant for, away stadiums and stuff like that. The atmosphere that they bring to these stadiums is absolutely phenomenal, and I'll give them absolute big ups for that. You know what I mean? That is incredible what they do, these boys. You know what I mean? They follow Celtic week in, week out. And everybody's got a right to voice their concerns or give their opinions. Every single person. Whether somebody comes into this live here today and says you're full of shit, that's your right to say that. You know what I mean? That is your absolute right to tell me that I'm talking shit, right? Or if I'm talking sense to you. Whatever you believe, right? Everybody's got a right to their own opinion. But I believe that the way Celtic deal with the Green Brigade is baffling. It's as if they've not got a clue again how to deal with people. It took far too long for them to come to an agreement with the Green Brigade and, make up and bring the atmosphere back to Celtic Park. Luckily, I think we done it just in the nick of time for to win the league last season. I think if there was no Green Brigade at Celtic Park the last few weeks, I think we'd have struggled to win these games. And as Martin O'Neill said at the end of the season there, when he was on the Celtic Park, he said, this place is a lot more effective and a lot stronger when we are together, when we're a collective. And there's no animosity and stuff like that. But, the board have got to take a massive, massive responsibility for that. They've got to. I agree everything that Celtic supporters say. Of course I don't. I don't agree or disagree with every single, comment that every single person makes or any specific person makes. However, the way that the Celtic board, who are the club, the way they deal with things is shambolic. Shambolic. It's so many, it's not that old saying, isn't it? It's like read the room, Celtic. We're sitting here patiently waiting on players coming in, this and that, and then we've got this new T-shirt coming out, man. Go and here, or we've got this match coming up. Go and pay money, geez money. You know what I mean? Read the room. But aye, that's my opinion. Beat with Hearts and St Mirren in the first two cup. Exactly. It's Wilfred Noncy. The situation Wilfred Noncy was allowed to drag on. Absolutely insane, man. Absolutely insane. Listen, I wasn't really one of the people that, how when Wilfred Noncy came into Celtic, right, and then it obviously wasn't working out, right, and we could all see it. I seen it 3 weeks in. We all seen it 3-4 weeks in, right, that it wasn't going to work. I wasn't one of really these people that was going, we should have kept Martin O'Neill, because I get the thinking behind appointing a manager who's younger, right? I got that. I was like, we need a manager in for the long term here. We don't want just a manager, bit part manager, interim manager for here and there and stuff like that. And I don't think any would have thought it would have worked out like this. We've won the league in the double, and then Martin O'Neill comes in for another 2 years, year, possible 2 years. But I was backing the fact that we went and got a young manager. Now, they gambled on Wilfred Noncy and they got it wrong. My issue isn't the fact they appointed Wilfred Noncy. My issue is the fact they allowed it to carry on. And honestly, they got lucky last season. You know what I mean? Us as Celtic fans and the Celtic board, we got lucky last season, right? That Hearts and Rangers just won the up to the job. Never mind all this conspiracy bullshit that they all came out with. John Beaton, that? Oh, do we really need? Am I really wanting to go into this? We'll talk about it for 2 seconds, right? But the penalty decision at Motherwell, right? That was 50-50. That was not the worst decision that's ever made. Like Elliot Watt came out and tweeted, right? And he's got a 4-match ban for it, and quite rightly so. Know what I mean? At the end of the day, I've seen a million worse decisions than that. That was right next to it. If that didn't hit his horn, it was right next to it. You know what I mean? It was like a whisker that if it didn't hit his horn. But still, I think it did hit his horn. But even if it didn't, you're talking millimetres. That's the worst decision that's ever been done. And let's be honest, Chris Boyd, Ali McCoist, John Robertson that night, I can understand John Robertson. He's a big Hearts fan, Hearts legend. Can understand him being angry. I can't understand why Chris Boyd and Ali McCoist, all these other guys were so raging about it. Oh, well, I can understand it, you know what I mean? Let's be honest, we know why. But they created that fire, you know what I mean? They created that situation. There was no cheating last season. There was no Celtic are getting favoured and Celtic are this and that. At the end of the day, I can remember, what about the 3 decisions at Easter Road that went against us? What about what about the fact that Joe Newell handballed it clear as day and put it in the back of the net and the goal stood? You know what I mean? What about where Benjamin Negrin was in the penalty box and they get shoved? And there was nothing. Didn't even go to VAR. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, Celtic won the league last season because Hearts and Rangers won the up to the job of a weaker Celtic winning it. They just won the up to competing with us at the end of the day. Rangers ran out of steam because they weren't good enough. They didn't have a good enough manager, didn't have a good enough squad. Hearts ran out of steam because they lost too many matches when Shankland and all that was out. They lost too many away matches. It's as simple as that. So the Celtic board, we did get lucky last season that Rangers and Hearts won the up tier. But aye, that's my thoughts. I can't even remember what I was rabbing on about there. It's just going on a tangent again. It doesn't matter. A lot of people need to get over it, and that's me saying that a lot of my own supporters do my tits in. Listen, mate, a lot of my own supporters do my tits in as well. You know, you're not going, like I say, you're not going to like everybody. You're not going to agree with everybody. I agree and I agree with people and I disagree with people. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. Football is very, very subjective. You know what I mean? It's very, very subjective. I could look at one player and think he's outstanding, man. He's been brilliant today. And you could be sitting with your mate and he could be looking at the exact same player and going, he's shite, man. I don't see anything in him. You know what I mean? So it's, although, you know, the general thing is, you know, we all do see the main picture of things. When it comes to players and tactics and all that, we've all got our own opinions and we've all got our own ideas and stuff like that. So, aye, football fans do each other's head in. That's just the way it goes, mate. 2 red cards for Trusty. I think that the one against, I think they were both 50-50, to be honest. I wasn't really angry at the 2 red cards. I know the one you're talking about. You're talking about the one at Hearts, the one at Tynecastle, where I'm sure it was Kabori that kind of he played it, but it was going towards the corner flag. Austin Trusty wiped him out. When I seen it, I was like, that's just stupid for Trusty. Stupid. The other Trusty one, the red card, was against Hibs at home, where he kind of lashed out. Again, I think it was silly for him. So I wasn't really irate at the decisions, to be honest with you. But aye. I have the best time ever when me and my Celtic mates have banter, no harm or anything. Well, that's what it's all about, mate. You know what I mean? I own this channel for me. You'll not find any hatred. I don't like Rangers, right? I do not like Rangers. I'm a Celtic fan. I've got no time for Rangers whatsoever. I don't like the club. I don't like them, right? I don't hate anybody. I don't hate Rangers supporters. Rangers supporters are more than welcome to come into my life. And if they're respectful and they want to give us opinions like yourself, guys, then I'm up for that. I'm totally up for that. You know what I mean? If somebody's just going to be nasty and horrible, I'll just ignore them. But I'm more than willing to speak to every supporter, any supporter that wants to come on and talk to me about Celtic or anything else. But you'll never listen. Half of my mum's family, sorry, no half of my mum. She's full Rangers. My mum and all our family are all Rangers supporters. My dad was a Celtic supporter, and all my dad's family are all Celtic supporters. So there's no room for me to be bitter. I've got no bitterness in me at all. I just don't like Rangers. I'm a Celtic fan. It's like being a Aston Villa fan and no liking Birmingham. It's the same thing. It doesn't make me sectarian or bitter. Exactly, that's how it should be, Gaz Mike says. There we go, see? It's all about the love in here, guys. Good man, Gaz. I appreciate that, pal. I appreciate that, mate. You're more than welcome, like I say, mate. Take him in anytime you like. That's what it's all about. But I've got another wee topic I want to talk about before we wrap things up. Tabiki Bursaspor, is that a kind of... Are you a Turkish fan that's happy with Iheanacho then? I'm pretty gutted that Iheanacho has moved on, pal. I'm not going to lie. You're the same family as me then, Jane. Mum's side Rangers and dad's side Celtic. There you go, mate. I went down my dad's side. I think you're a Rangers fan, Gaz, aren't you? You went down your mum's side, which is fair enough, mate. I was more influenced by my dad and his family because they were bigger Celtic, they were bigger football fans, to be honest, in general. But thanks everybody for all the comments and the likes and all this stuff. If you're not following me, I'm also on Instagram and I'm also on Twitter at the moment. I want to get it up on Facebook and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. We'll get there in the end. I'll try and get this on every platform. But like I say, I'm on YouTube, Instagram, and X at the moment. Where I'm just going to put out daily content. I'm going to make more of an effort with this channel, to be honest with you, because I love talking Celtic and I want to interact with as many football Celtic fans, everybody as possible. It's good to refresh and see guys like Gaz in as well. So I'm also on TikTok as well, by the way. I don't think I said that, but remember, follow me everywhere, guys. And that's all I've got to say for tonight. But thanks very much for watching. Thank you.